Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Spider-Man Far From Home's biggest mystery, other than the insanity of Peter Parker and Nick Fury coming back from the dead, is this Mysterio. Mysterio, what is this guy's deal? Is he a hero? Why do there appear to be several other new villains in this movie? Well, a few new details have emerged from this footage, so let's dig deeper into the villains of Spider-Man Far From Home, and spoiler warning in case I get anything right in your life. Okay, so refresher on Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Name, Quentin Beck. Job, former Hollywood special effects artist, known for his fishbowl-style helmet, over-the-top costume, and illusions. Now, he doesn't use real sorcery. He's more magician than wizard. Unless you're a magician, then all of you are wizards. Beck uses practical movie-style special effects. You know, smoke and mirrors. Sometimes that smoke is toxic or hallucinatory, thus the helmet. And for many of us, mirrors are toxic and hallucinatory. Mysterio has also at times presented himself as a hero, solving crises that he actually created, defeating these fake villains that were actually illusions under his control, or villains that were actually him in disguise. And that, some believe, is what Mysterio could be doing in this movie. In the breakdown I did of the trailer, I pointed out how all of Mysterio's actions are so theatrical. He's like a guy at Comic-Con who couldn't decide if he wanted to cosplay as Thor, Iron Man, or Doctor Strange, so he's like, you know what, I'll do all three. Though look at those mystical shapes of his energy beams. At first, they kind of look like Doctor Strange mystic spells, but if you look even more closely, you can see that they originate from sparks that come out of his gauntlets, as if these are practical pyrotechnics. Yeah, we're seeing that zipper, Mysterio. So does that mean that this water monster is actually an illusion under Mysterio's control? If so, that's a very impressive stunt. Waterbending ain't easy. Like imagine Quentin wading down into the canal at night, installing hundreds of water jets. Magic is my life. But it's not totally clear that this exactly is the case, because it turns out this Far From Home trailer hid 3 cryptic Easter eggs. One of them we already pointed out in our breakdown. In the shot of students touring Venice behind Ned, you can see a boat with the letters ASM 212. That could be a nod to the comic Amazing Spider-Man issue 212, which was the introduction of the villain Hydro-Man. Hydro-Man is Maury Bench, a crewman on a cargo ship who got knocked into the ocean while an experimental generator was being tested on the water, giving him the ability to transform into water himself. He's really a lesser-known Spidey villain, but he has shown up in different incarnations of the Sinister Six, like the Sinister Syndicate from the Universal ride that I went on a bunch as a kid. There was another similar Easter egg in another shot in this trailer with Nick Fury and Maria Hill firing guns at a different monster, this one made of dirt, rock, and rubble. But look at that license plate. It's partially covered, but you can make out 463. That could be a reference to the Amazing Spider-Man issue 4, which came out in 1963. It was the introduction of the villain Sandman. Sandman is Flint Marko, an escaped criminal who runs into a nuclear testing site on a beach, causing his molecular structure to fuse with that of sand. He's a much better known recurring Spidey villain. You may remember him from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3. But if that was enough, this Far From Home trailer hid a 3rd Easter egg. In the footage of the Tower Bridge scene in London, the students run past an Audi with the license plate number 2865 SCP. 2865 could be a nod to the Amazing Spider-Man issue 28, released in 1965. This was the introduction of Molten Man. Molten Man, like Hydro-Man, is a lesser-known villain. He's Mark Raxton, a former scientist for Oscorp. He stole a liquid metal alloy from a radioactive meteor, hoping to sell it, but then after a fight, the alloy spilled on him and it gave him this golden metallic skin, but it also gives off uncontrollable levels of heat. Molten Man could be the figure that we see right before this part of the trailer. Fiery, metallic-looking figure that bursts from a meteorite-looking cocoon structure. So all of this is pretty good evidence that in addition to Mysterio, Hydro-Man, Sandman, and Molten Man, or some versions of them, could be in this movie. Why so many villains though? There are a few ways that I could see this going. One theory, perhaps Far From Home is retconning the backstory of these Spidey villains so that they're actually just a cast of patsies in Mysterio's grand false flag strategy. Each one representing a different natural element, water, earth, fire, calling themselves villain names like Hydro-Man, Sandman, Molten Man, names given to them by Mr. Hollywood himself, Mysterio, creating this easily digestible scenario where he gets to play hero. Now, it's also possible that each of these forms could be played by one collaborator of Mysterio's. There was a report that Turkish-born actor Numan Akar would be playing a part in this movie as a guy named Dimitri, which was the first name of the Spider-Man villain Dmitry Smirnikov, aka the Chameleon. Now, in in the comics, Chameleon is more of a master of disguise and doesn't have these kind of shape-shifting abilities, but maybe the movie will feature him and Mysterio as part of a duo of actors and special effects dudes staging these epic duels, a European tour of street theater, with Gyllenhaal as a pretty boy receiving all the superhero praise. Now sure, that might feel a bit like the twist that we saw in Iron Man 3. Remember, the one that revealed the Mandarin is nothing more than a false identity played by a patsy actor. I guess it all depends on how sacred you consider Flint Marco's backstory to be. That'd be kind of a nerdy cross to die on. They retconned Sandman after all these sand models that they grew up making? Now, there's also the possibility that these sub-villains are based on the Elementals, an ancient group in the Doctor Strange comics. Hydron, Master of Water, Magnum, Master of Earth, Hellfire, Master of Fire, and Zephyr, Master of Air, something the comic artist really wanted to expose a lot of her skin to. Looking closely at that Tower Bridge attack, those bolts of lightning definitely appear to be targeted. We could be looking at a fourth air, or weather, or electricity-based villain. Maybe Zephyr, or maybe another element-based Spider-Man villain like Electro. Whatever names they go by, or whether they're autonomous or being controlled by a central mastermind, I do not think these other things will be major villains on par with Mysterio, the way Sandman, Venom, and Harry Osborn Goblin were in Spider-Man 3. We already have a plethora of villains in Spider-Man's world. Remember, the post-credits scene of Homecoming hinted that Adrian Toomes, Vulture, and Matt Gargan as Scorpion would come back at some point. So I predict the multiple villain team-up will be coming in the third of these Spider-Man movies, the true Sinister Six movie that we've been promised. Like, imagine a post-credits scene in Far From Home. Adrian Toomes and Matt Gargan still in prison, Quentin Beck, maybe also his partner Dimitri, also incarcerated, but they're all released by one man, Norman Osborn, rebooted in MCU. Or maybe Doc Ock. Maybe a member of this version of the Sinister Six could be the incarcerated Cletus Cassidy, bringing Carnage into the MCU. I know it feels like kind of a stretch, but hey, every crew needs a psycho who goes too far. In Homecoming and Far From Home, Spider-Man has been more of a pest, interfering in villains' plans. But I think in this third movie, which could be called something like Spider-Man Homefront, these villains will finally band together to deal with this pest, figure out who he is, and strike him right at home. But I want to know from you guys, what do you want the post-credits scene of Spider-Man Far From Home to be? Comment down below, follow us, and subscribe to our new podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, especially if you use the Himalaya app, because subbing through Himalaya will help them help us release new fun shows. And if you live in the LA area, come see my live comedy show, Darkest Timeline Comedy, starring me, some hilarious comedians I know, some guests from new Rockstars who you know and love, Friday, February 1st at the Acme Theater in North Hollywood. Thank you for watching, and hey, if Sandman really was your favorite Spider-Man villain, I'm sorry to make fun of you. You're right, sand is scary. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.